All right. Now, no complaining, no whining, no moaning. If this happens to be a section that leaves you on a cliff and hanging off the end, I'm not doing the next one, most likely. Okay. So there. Countryman, just deal with it. Don't have to worry about Sue whining because she's too busy moving. Be praying for them people out there. All right. End Times, Part 1. So there'll probably be a Part 2 coming up. The gasoline-soaked wood went up with a flash. And I'm going to read this with no personal interjection of comments, okay? So I'm just telling you, I'm not going to make personal comments. I might like to, I might not like to. I'm just not going to make any personal comments. I'm going to read the story as is. It's the author's story, and I'm not going to interject, as I have been trying to do in both of these books that I've been reading. That being said, leaping flames ran quickly along the arms. The brightly burning cross revealed 6 hooded, white-clad figures standing in a circle around it. After a moment, they began to silently spread out in a line, unslinging rifles to point them at the windows of a small white country church in front of them. As the first man shouldered his rifle, John Horn stepped out of the darkness under an oak tree some 30 yards behind the cross and worked the action of his short-barreled shotgun. Everybody knows what that sounds like. The 6 hooded figures whirled, and as they did so, John shouted, "Sheriff's Department, drop your weapons and put your hands in the air." One of the robed figures swung his Mini-14 around to hip shoot at the figure illuminated by the fire, but was slammed to the ground by rifle fire from the darkness on either side. The deputy said nothing for a moment, then spoke. "Any of the rest of you gentlemen want to try your luck?" One by one, the remaining 5 Klansmen dropped their weapons to the ground. John stepped forward until he was within 20 yards of the men. "That's better. Much better. Now, if you gentlemen would be so kind as to take 3 paces back from those rifles, I'd be much obliged." A moment's hesitation. 2. Then one man did as had been told, and the remaining 4 did a moment later. "Very good," John said. "Now, as I'm sure you're aware, there's a law in the state of Florida about wearing hoods in public, so I'll have to ask you to kindly shuck them for me. While you're at it, please be so kind as to remove your robes. I'd hate to find that one of you is wearing a pistol under there somewhere that I didn't know about." The hooded figure who had lit the cross spoke. "Who are you? What do you want with us? This isn't none of your affair." "I'm John Horn, Sector Deputy for the Alachua County Sheriff Department. You gentlemen are in my sector. You are all also under arrest. Now, I told you to take those hoods off and robes off, so get with it." John motioned at them with the shotgun. One of the men on the end threw down his hood and robe. The other 3 soon followed, with the man who had spoken being the last. "That's much better. I like to look a man in the face when I talk to him, don't you?" John said. Out of the black shadows thrown by the corners of the church, members of the posse stepped forward and began to cuff the men. The man who had spoken was wearing a holstered revolver, of which Ed Harris quickly relieved him. A search of the rest yielded pocket knives and rifle ammunition, but no other weapons. The Klan leader spoke again. "John Horn, I've heard of you. You faced down that army man. What are you doing here? This isn't your affair. This has nothing to do with you." "On the contrary," John replied, "it has a lot to do with me. As I told you, I'm the sector deputy for this area, and you men are under arrest on suspicion of murder, rape, and robbery. One of your compadres had a real brainstorm at the Archer Market yesterday morning and tried to trade Mrs. Rutledge's wedding ring. Too bad for him that the trader he was dealing with had attended her wedding last year and got to wondering about the inscription inside the ring. He sings very sweetly when we lean on him, and he fingered you all quite precisely." A look of shock crossed the faces of the 5 men, but the speaker soon recovered. He eyed John in the light of the burning cross, then Ed, Jimmy, and the other 4 posse members he could see. "You're all white men. You're all a part of us. Don't you understand them people were just presume it said the N-word. Not real people at all, just mud people. Don't you understand? These are the end times. The white race has got to band together to fight the Antichrist and his minions, the mud people, Khazars, and the other mongrelized races. It's no crime to kill them and take back what they have stolen from us. You should join us in doing God's work. This time it was John who was shocked. For a moment he said nothing as he tried to digest what he'd just heard. The spokesman looked pleadingly at him to understand. Finally John said, "It was an asteroid, you idiot, not the second coming. This isn't the book of Revelations or wherever it is you get this crap from. You raped, you robbed, and murdered 3 people. Never mind the homes you shot into and the damage you've done." "No," the mound shouted at him. "It was God's work. He sent that rock as his sign. We have a holy duty to battle against the Antichrist and all who would join him. We do only what we must, and any sins that we commit will be forgiven. You're all white men. You've seen the way the mud people and Khazars have taken white women and mongrelized our race. It's the work of the devil, and we must combat it. Join us in the Holy Crusade." John was beginning to grasp the nature of the man's passion, or at least he thought he did. With a tone of disgust, "Fella, you're as crazy as a sack full of bullshit. You can debate theology with the prison chaplain if you like, but I'm done with you. Ed, Jimmy, you and the rest get these men over to the truck. We'll keep them there in the headlights where we can see them until County Central can get a van or something out here. Miguel, how about searching the body there and see if there's anything worthwhile on it? We'll let the county put it in a body bag. Steve, gather up those rifles and remove all the ammo." He turned and looked back toward the tree he had stepped out from under and shouted, "Jake!" A voice answered from the darkness. It belonged to Jacob Daniels, Mike Daniels' eldest son. "I'm here." John hollered back, "Jake, switch on the truck headlights so everyone can see and move it up about another 100 yards or so. Bring me my sticks. My leg's beginning to pain me." A few seconds later, he heard the sound of a truck motor turn over, catch, and headlights come on about 150 yards away and began to pull forward until they were 50 yards behind the oak tree. The posse members marched their prisoners toward the light and had them sit on the ground about 10 yards in front of the truck. Jake ran up with John's crutches and handed them to him. "Thanks," John said, and began to limp toward the truck. Upon arrival, he picked up the CB mic from the truck radio, and spoke, Rover to base, over." A second later, he heard Lisa's voice come across the radio. "Base to Rover, we read you, over." John keyed the mic again. "Good. Base, contact County Central and ask them to send a van and at least several armed deputies to the church at the junction of the county road and the dirt road about 3 miles north of the Williston Road. It's 148th Avenue, I think. We have taken 5 men into custody and have 1 other dead among the suspects. All armed, all arrested on suspicion of the Rutledge murders last week in Archer. Do you copy? Over." A few seconds later came the reply. "Roger that, we copy. You're at the church at the intersection of the County Road and 148th Avenue, 3 miles north of the Williston Road, requesting van and several armed deputies for 5 suspects and 1 body in connection with the Rutledge murders in Archer last week. We're establishing contact now. We'll get back to you when message communicated, over." "Roger that, I copy, over." He hung up the microphone on the dash and walked over to the edge of the light, standing just inside the darkness. Good night.